I'm going to attempt to discuss how we report transfusion reactions in Ontario, and not make it too more confusing than sometimes it can be. In this talk, I'll be reviewing, next slide there. In this talk, I'll be reviewing the background of the Canadian hemovigilance system and the process of how an adverse event or transfusion reaction gets investigated, and who or what regulatory agencies transfusion reactions should be reported to. I'll also be discussing the process of reporting made easier in Ontario using the TTIS online reporting tool and our online reporting form. Over 20 years ago, the tainted blood tragedy, as it came to be called, was a major public health issue in Canada. About 1,000 individuals who received blood transfusions between the late 1970s and 80s were infected with HIV, and about 30,000 were infected with hepatitis C. Justice Crever released his landmark report with 50 recommendations to improve the surveillance of the Canadian blood system. This involved the creation of various agencies, this being two blood suppliers in 1998, the Canadian Blood Services and Héma-Québec. There was also the creation of the surveillance system called the Transfusion Transmitted Injury Surveillance System, TTISS, launched in 2001 by the Public Health Agency of Canada to capture adverse transfusion events or transfusion reactions to blood components. These are red blood cells, platelets, plasma, and plasma derivatives or protein products. So what does this structure look like? And what are these agencies' purposes? These are the two arms of the Canadian vigilance system where transfusion reactions need to be reported to. The blood suppliers, CBS, Héma-Québec, and the manufacturers of plasma derivatives of protein products are regulated by Health Canada through the Canada Vigilance Program. Their purpose is to ensure the supply of the blood supply and that they're safe.
I don't have to worry about speaking or.
Sorry, they are safe. It is mandatory for hospitals to report transfusion reactions that are related to the blood quality. The other agency, TTISS, run by PHAC, or Public Health Agency of Canada, and contracted by the Ministry of Health as part of the Blood Contribution Program, monitors all moderate to severe adverse transfusion events, regardless of whether they're related to the blood quality. So why should we report these reactions? You can see here when monitoring blood safety, it is important for several reasons, such as recalling blood components from the same donor. There might be a need to defer the donor of donating of that donor, or the recipient might have to be notified. With TTISS, trends of increasing or decreasing occurrences of transfusion reactions may alert us to reasons that may why this is what's causing this. Like a decrease may validate an improved blood processing method, while an increase may alert us to a threat. So because we also get the denominator data that is available from CBS, we can determine a risk assessment of the number of transfusion reactions that happen per units of blood transfused. So with both arms having to report to, how do we decide what arm we should report to and when? There are two algorithms I would suggest that are helpful, and these are in your booklet. They have been revised since, these are revised and updated after November 19, 2019, when there were changes to the reporting due to Vanessa's Law. One is the TTIS Ontario Guide to Reporting Transfusion Reactions. It's in your booklet. It's 4 pages, a guide that gives you contacts and reporting agency and timing when you should report, as well as the algorithm for transfusion reactions for blood components as per the blood regulations, and an algorithm for plasma derivative manufacturers as per the Food and Drug Act. This is posted on the TTIS website. The second algorithm is very similar, saying the same things, and it's posted on the professional education page of the CBS website. These algorithms are helpful, especially in Ontario, as we have made it so that you can use the TTIS form for initial reporting to cut down on duplicating efforts. So When using the reporting algorithm from CBS, I want to run through the decision making. We can follow these decision steps from this algorithm that need to be taken when reporting a transfusion reaction. Now, I'm looking at this, but just to step back a bit, when a reaction is identified and reported to the hospital's transfusion medicine lab, there's an investigation that goes on to determine the type of reaction or adverse transfusion event, the imputability, the severity of the reaction, and the outcome of the reaction. In order to identify the reaction and help with the investigation, the TTIS Ontario has developed the acute transfusion reaction chart, and it's a helpful tool to go through the symptoms and investigate the reaction. An updated version recently updated October 2020 in conjunction with ORBCON. A special shout out thanks to Donna Berta that did a lot of effort on this, can be found in your booklet and on the TTIS and ORBCON website. As mentioned, there are two algorithms, one for blood transfusion reactions to blood components and one to plasma derivatives. So for reaction to a blood component, all reactions are reported to the provincial TTISS, regardless of their relation to the blood quality. And then depending on certain criteria, they may go directly to Health Canada, or they may go to Health Canada via CBS or directly to Health Canada, depending on the circumstances. And the timing of the serious reaction related to the blood quality needs to be reported immediately to CBS by calling or sending an initial report right away. So using the TTIS form, sites can start the initial report, but it's important to still call and send the report if it needs to go to Canadian Blood Services. So if we look at the, after we report to TTISS, I've injected just a step there that if there's a mistake at the hospital, a mislabeled sample that caused an incompatible hemolytic reaction, maybe the patient was given the wrong blood, that just needs to be reported to TTISS. It's not related to the blood quality. So I've just put a step in that there before going to the step of deciding whether the reaction is serious. To proceed then, is it serious and unexpected? That's the second box after the reporting to, after the TTIS box. Is it something that the transfusion medicine lab did once they got the blood, like pooling or washing the cells, that could have affected the safety of the component and contributed to the transfusion reaction? If that answer is yes, then it must be directly reported to Health Canada. If nothing was done in the lab, you got the product and you transfused it and there was a serious reaction, that was thought that the blood was caused, like the trolley, the severe allergic, the anaphylactic, bacterial contamination, transfusion-related infection, mislabeled donor component, then we need to report that to mandatory to report to CBS right away. So if it's something you did in the lab, it goes directly to Health Canada. If not, it goes to a serious reaction goes directly to Canadian Blood Services, who then reports it to Health Canada. Now, in some circumstances, you might not actually know. Say there was a bacterial infection, you did something in the lab, but you didn't think it was you, or the fridge was off or something, then it's just safe to, in that circumstance, when you're not sure, to report both to Health Canada and directly and Canadian Blood Services. As well, any of those serious reactions that go to Canadian Blood Services also go to TTISS and are reported. There may be reactions that are not serious, such as TACO, due to the fluid overload that happened because of a transfusion practice, or a hemolytic reaction not related to the blood, that that are unrelated to the blood quality that only need to be reported to TTISS, unless, for example, you have some serious TACO that's not expected and suspicious that it was related to the blood component. In referring, there's a note in referring to minor reactions in Ontario. I just want to note, we've been collecting minor reactions mandatory from 28 hospitals in Ontario called the Sentinel sites that account for 35% of the transfusion activity. We're collecting these in order to calculate risks of minor reactions, and we've been collecting since 2008. TTIS does encourage all sites to report all minor reactions as well. Not only just for us monitoring that risk assessment, but or for the provincial and national level, but also it's good for the local information for your hospital, as everything that's entered into the Ontario TTIS database is accessible by the hospital and you can use to create your own reporting. Just a little interjection there. And to switch over now to the plasma derivatives components. Everything again is entered to the TTI's provincial site, who then and everything in our provincial site goes to Public Health Agency of Canada national program. And again, starting off, entering it into our form. We have a form that you can use online, you can print and you can send, and you don't have to wait to submit it. You can save at any time. So as it's important timing wise to get something serious off to the regulatory agencies. But the first question is the reaction serious as defined by the Food and Drug Act? Does it result in death, prolonged hospitalization, significant disability, or requires intervention such as a severe hemolytic, a bacterial contamination, allergic reaction, a severe TACO or trolley, aseptic meningitis, or even a cluster of minor reactions that are suspicious because they're happening with a lot number and in a group. And according to Vanessa's law after 2019, these all need to be directly reported to Health Canada, as well as the plasma derivative manufacturers, as well as to TTISS. So I know I'm going a little fast on this, but this sounds very complicated. We try to make it as easy as possible, but there is one other tool that I find helpful when navigating to report this. This is an online interactive tool that reflects what we've just said. So if we pick something, this is available on the TTIS website, and I've taken both the CBS algorithm and the TTIS algorithm and put it into an interactive form to ask, that with branching logic. So for instance, if we pick a TACO that caused by a blood component that was transfused too fast, not serious, just caused due to circulatory overload and is non-serious, we can pick that it's a blood component. The next question is, was the transfusion one of the following, a minor reaction? And we can say no. Then we can say, was the transfusion caused by an incompatible transfusion, mislabeled sample, giving the wrong patient the blood sample? We can say no. Was it due to something the TML lab did, pooled, washed? We can say no. And there's, you can see, I won't pick it, but there's a not sure. If something they did, then it alerts them to also report to Health Canada, such as a bacterial, if it was a bacterial infection. But in this case, then we would pick TACO. And then it says to report to Ontario TTIS only. There is a caveat below, or a message that's saying, just if it is unexpected and or serious, keep in mind if it's caused by something you think in the blood, it also must be reported to Canadian Health Services. If we go back, I'll just go back and reset this just to use, because we decided we're going to look at another reaction. Maybe it was a minor reaction, but it was a minor reaction with IVIG, and it was a cluster. A lot was happening. We want to know what to do. We would pick an IVIG product, or sorry, we would pick a plasma derivative or plasma protein product. Then was it a minor reaction? Yes. And if we say, was it a cluster? Yes. Then it would prompt us to report this further to Health Canada and to Canada Vigilance Program. But if we had said no to that question, it may say just to report to TTISS, or no further reporting, optional to report to TTISS. So that might help. So if we go further into the next slide, what we're trying to do is help not duplicate efforts in Ontario by having a one-stop shopping. So Health Canada and Canada Blood Services have been accepting this as initial TTIS form as initial reporting form, and you can print it off and send it anytime. You don't have to wait till it's complete because of a timing issue to Health Canada, to Canadian Blood Services. For serious events, it has to be immediate. So if you go to the next slide, you can see what it looks like for data entry. And the next slide just shows what it looks like if you're printing it off. It looks much like the TTS form. If we go to the next slide, what we want to do, because we also recognize that, okay, we're almost there, but we could improve on this. When you're reporting trolley events or more information needs to be needed for Canadian Blood Services, there's a separate form for that. So we're currently working on with Canadian Blood Services in Ontario to include the revised questions, the revised trolley form questions, so that if you pick a trolley, then you can ask the next questions, that it's a suspected trolley, then the questions on the CBS forms will appear. We'll include sections to be more descriptive for Health Canada, direct questions that if they want more information, you can put it there. And we'll include information to describe your clustering of plasma derivative or protein product or minor reaction clustering events. And so just to summarize, this is just a sort of an overall chart that I've done here, just to say that, you know, enter everything. Here's the pathway for TTISS, but you can enter everything into our form, and it'll go, and then we'll send it off to and put it into SINPI, which is the national database for TTISS. So they get all the information from Ontario. And as you're filling out, as you're doing this, you can make your decision making to the blood component and plasma derivatives of your questions to enter into the system. So if you fill out, I've just put a little note there that if you fill out the form at any time, if you do it right away, you can send it off to the Canadian Blood Services or plasma derivative manufacturers, or directly to Health Canada. And I think that's all I've got for my talk. I've had some additional references. If you go back to the slides, there's just a few more slides. Additional references here for where I've got this information. And I appreciate I've had conversations with Maria Fracci and Matthew Yan at Blood Services, and we continue to revise and upgrade this the form so it makes reporting as easy as possible. And if there are anything I've said that needs more clarification, we'll do so after the meeting. And